Michael, thanks for joining the podcast, Michael. Obviously, I've heard about your name in multiple circles in the Seattle marketing community, so glad you could find some time.
Yeah, likewise, Kishore. I really appreciate you having me on the CMO Diaries podcast. I'm excited.
Thank you, Michael. Michael, I want to start off with one of your LinkedIn posts about the list of coffee shops you've kept in like your Excel file. Tell me more about it. I was pretty fascinated to see that come through in my feed.
Oh yeah, you mean the different coffee brands that we've?
Yes.
Yeah, totally. So we have the F5 Tower. For those that of your listeners that don't know, it's about a 50-story building in downtown Seattle. It's and each floor has two different coffee maker types. Which, if you ever visit, it's a beautiful building. We opened in like 2019. It's a gorgeous spot. And the two different coffee maker types each have two coffee bean bins. So one is regular, one is decaf. And the folks that run our facilities are really thoughtful about the coffee we feature. So each floor features coffee roasted by local Washington roasters. So we have many of the most popular roasters that you'd find in coffee shops, some like that are actual coffee shops themselves, and some that are just bean roasting providers. And so I stumbled upon this spreadsheet that the facilities folks built that literally is the map of all those coffee providers. So if you are absolutely you must have Zoka coffee, that you can go to the 32nd floor and get your Zoka coffee. And
awesome.
So I shared it, and a bunch of people at the company were like, I had no idea. This is amazing.
Michael, I actually discovered recently that Seattle is actually very well known for coffee and coffee shops, because even Starbucks, it looks like the first store actually opened up in Seattle like long time back. But it's pretty cool to see that list.
Yeah, totally. We do have our coffee culture here for sure.
That's awesome. Cool, Michael. Excited to chat with you. I think my sort of initial topic was, obviously you've been around the block and you've sort of been in the CMO role for the last 3 years, right? 3+ years, I'm assuming, right? Would want to start with, like, what are some of the things that you like about the role and you dislike about the role?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. I think, well, one, I love marketing. Maybe that's obvious, but it's pretty important if you're going to lead at this level in the marketing discipline. You really just got to love it all. And one of the things I love about the CMO role is that I get to lean into it all.
Right.
Every day, I get to lean into an enormous variety of things. And I think that is not, that might sound obvious too, but it's unique to marketing to some degree. Like my company has about 6,500 employees. I have less than 250 of those, but in that less than 250 people, I have more than 25 different job profiles of the people in my team. So, like, how many leadership roles have that kind of variability, right? The way one day I'm talking in brand strategy, one day I'm talking PR, then I'm in developer relations, campaign strategy, marketing analytics. That kind of variety is incredible in marketing. And so it's a challenge. Every day you're in something different. You get a context switch, but you get to and not at the quarterly business review, I look at all the results of those things, but every day I'm leading and managing with that kind of variety, which I love. And I think it leads to another thing I love about it, which is I love leading at that level, right? I get to hire and develop very senior leaders across these different job profiles, which it's like I'm in school every day with them, because I'm hiring functional experts in things like demand strategy and campaign strategy and PR and AR. And that's an incredible learning experience. Even though I've been around the industry so long, it's that's just an incredible learning experience. Yeah. I mean, dislikes. Okay. That's some likes. Dislikes. I mean, I think any CMO right now would probably have to highlight somehow the macroeconomic environment that we're in. I spend a fair bit more time, a fair bit deeper than I probably want to be in my budget. Now, there's healthy rigor to it all, right? We've developed an incredible amount of discipline, I think, in the last few years because we had to. But I think if we're honest, all of us would like more breathing room than we've got right now.
Right.
And that might be the most clear thing that I can highlight to you.
That's awesome. Michael, what actually one thing that made me happy, I saw you're hiring for a bunch of roles, which actually made me happy, actually, that like, hey, look, people are actually hiring back few more
Yeah.
roles, investing into marketing, thinking about the next few years of growth plans, which, I'm sure a lot of CMOs are thinking about. So that was a
Yeah.
good news and a positive news. But on
Yeah.
that point, Michael, on the one of the lights you mentioned, at your level, when you have 250 sort of members in your team, right? What are like some of the operating rhythms that you have to manage the marketing org? Is it like, do you have like a marketing all hands every month? Do you have like a weekly sync with your campaigns team to like review the campaigns? Like it's a sizable team, and I want to understand how you manage the time across these multiple different disciplines.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think it wildly varies, I'm sure, at
Mm.
different sizes and scale of company and then of marketing teams, and I'm sure it varies also across for marketing leaders that report into a CEO versus a COO versus a CRO might tie them to different company rhythms. But there are a couple of constructs that I think are really important to me personally. One is, as I highlighted, that leadership team variability that I have. Like I have senior functional leaders reporting to me, and it is incredibly important to me that they spend a lot of quality time together. Um, you can't just surround yourself with a bunch of smart people that work hard and expect to have great outcomes, right? It's all about the team unit. And so defining the culture of the team requires that leadership team spend time together. And we spend meaningful time together on things like performance management across the team. Like I want my senior leaders to understand the top and bottom performers in all of the teams around them. I don't want them to just report to me in one-on-ones. I want them to know about peer number one, peer number two's orgs as well. It helps with talent mobility discussions, but it also ensures that we are all taking accountability for the collective culture that we're building. I do something called a roundup on a monthly basis. I do two. I do a morning one and an evening one because we have a global team. So I'm always pushed for time zone equality, which is hard, right? And the roundup, we call it the roundup because, if I'm honest, we asked ChatGPT what to call it. And ChatGPT gave us some options, and we liked Roundup the best. And what I build this meeting as an opportunity to understand what's going on in the rooms you can't be in.
Right.
So the level of transparency that you get if you can sit down with your team and say, hey, like we had a board meeting last week. Let me tell you about the board meeting. Some things I can't share, obviously, but let me tell you what it looked like. And sometimes literally it's screen captures or photographs of the room will go up on the screen and say, here's what the room looked like. Who the board members are. Let me tell you about this guy over here and this woman over here, and I'll give you a little bit about their personality. And then we talk about some topics and things that I might present that I can share with the team. And I try to share as much as possible about those rooms, board meetings, quarterly business reviews, executive leadership team meetings, so that folks they don't feel like there's such a black box at the top or in spaces that they aren't invited to. So that's been one of the most important aspects of the culture that I think I've created in my current role, is that transparency at the top.
I love that, Michael. And one of the learnings also had is that actually people care about such stuff. Like, we might think that board meetings are for like C-suite and but people actually love hearing about what is actually happening in those rooms, right? And good folks do care about it. And I'm glad that you have like a top-down mandate that happens every month, right? Where you sort of discuss like what am I hearing from my CEO? Here's what he things like that, right?
Yeah.
So. And in this meeting, do the functional leaders also present what they're working on, or is it just you who's taking ownership of it primarily?
We call the roundup is a presentation of my leadership team. A lot of the time, it's those rooms that people are interested in are rooms that I'm in alone. But we'll also, we do pipeline reviews with that my growth and demand leader is responsible for, and so often he'll jump in and say, "Let me tell you about how the pipeline review with sales and finance went," or we do a global sales or a field marketing review, and we'll talk about that. So we look for opportunities to elevate the entire leadership team in those moments, for sure. And then we always, part of that from a cultural perspective is just open Q&A. Like, I think if you aren't giving your team an opportunity to ask just unrestricted questions of you in a live environment, It's crazy risky, right? You never know. But you've got to do that on a frequent basis. It can't be quarterly. It can't be like at an all hands once in a while. You really have to give your team the opportunity to challenge your decisions,
Right.
and hear your explanations for those decisions. The good one, the ones that were celebrated, and the ones that feel bad, you still have to be there for them, because without that, conspiracy theories arise, and negative culture festers, and that's just not, at this size, that can be hard to work out of the system. Like if you let that build up, it's going to take quarters for you to work it out.
That's well said, Michael. Michael, and also one thing, on the topic of budget, you mentioned obviously for a lot of CMOs, budgets are flat. They're figuring out how to sort of increase those budgets, etc. But one thing I want to pick your thoughts on is, how does the modern enterprise go-to-market, or especially marketing playbook, look like? Right. Very curious about marketing in general, because there is a lot of search is getting disrupted. Like Google is obviously, like sort of getting its own sort of search changing constantly. Like just want to hear your thoughts on like what are you thinking about next year in terms of your priorities? Where do you want to invest more, invest less? Just want to hear your high level perspective on where you think the market will go eventually.
Yeah, there's a few different things that come to mind when you ask that question. One is, I think that in enterprise, and certainly in upper enterprise, there's just such a great deal of distance between you as a marketer and the last mile, right? Deals don't close in web forms with credit card numbers.
Right.
They close in conference rooms, they close on whiteboards, they close at dinner, over a glass of wine. Like that's where the booking happens many times, or the booking sort of gets confirmed many times. Right. And if you've been around for a while as an enterprise player, you've probably sold to many of your target customers already, right? So whether that's true today or not, if you're successful over time, new logos are fewer and further between, and you're more focused on these expansion and upsell motions. And so for me, what has happened to us in a good way over the last few years is I think marketers in general have become highly surgical across awareness and demand motions where they weren't always before. I mean, budget constraints force surgical focus, and some teams do this better than others. And so you start thinking about cohorts of customers that are not just about surface level characteristics. If you combine that, the last mile is far away and I have a constrained budget, I've got to be thinking about not just sort of segment characteristics or customer size characteristics. I got to deeply understand the nature of the last mile. Mm-hmm. I've got to build an integrated marketing motion that is plugged into sales, that is tailored for very precise outcomes for specific customer profiles, which is a total experimentation game, right? Not where you start, it's not where you finish. Right. You start with display advertising, your BDRs are intaking, you're not seeing conversions on the BDRs, but you scored those leads high for a reason, right? So don't give up on that. Get back after it and say, okay, what's tactic number 2 for those leads? Are we going to telemarketing? If that doesn't work, you step back and you said you defined the cohort for a reason. Maybe you've attacked the wrong persona with that customer account. And so at the end of the day, like, I know you asked the question a little bit in the context of tactics and focus dollars, but I think, when I think about the way we focus as an organization, my focus in the current environment, it's actually to be entirely flexible and experimentation focused on how we attack very precise customer cohorts with very precise outcomes. And I mean, you're not going to get a softball, right? Nobody's going to, so you can't just like, big swing for the fence, big swing for the fence, big swing for the fence. Let's see how it goes. Like that was really, if I think back 10 or 15 years ago, a lot of enterprise marketing was in big swings for fences. And I think we have gotten more surgical over the past 5 years as a mechanism, out of necessity. But in my experience, this is exactly the right way to operate enterprise marketing. And folks that are still swinging for the fences are not learning the lessons that they should have learned in the last 5 years. So, I mean, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I have a couple of follow-ups on this one. When you mean swinging for the fences, can you elaborate on what could come under the swinging for fences bucket?
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's a couple of ways that I think about that. One is being very focused at the top of the funnel without a clear mid and low funnel execution strategy. That's I think when I say swinging for the fences, I'm often talking about the top of the funnel, right? So but also you've got to have a baseball analogy. I'm going to go with sports. Hopefully it translates for your listeners, but you got to play small ball. Like you got to be first base. How do we get to second base? Should we steal third base? Who's going to get us home? Who's coming up next? Who's on deck? Like that kind of surgical approach is my alternative to swinging for the fences. So top of funnel execution, I think is important, but it's not the only thing. And I think a lot of people get very hung up on what's happening at the top of funnel. And then in enterprise, you've got to be entirely focused on how your sellers are catching and executing against your demand. And you have to participate in the process of the sales motion so that you can actually bring that demand to them in an intelligent way, in an actionable way, and in a measurable way. You can't throw meetings over the fences. I just switched sports analogies, I think, but you can't throw meetings over the fences and walk away and go back to generating more demand. Like it is carry those leads through the funnel with your sellers through the sales pipeline and into conversion to bookings, and then into conversion to expansion motions and upsell motions. I think that's not swinging for the fences for me.
Right. Like on the point, are you seeing any difference in tactics across the funnel? Like, for example, are the tactics fundamentally changing in terms of how you reach prospects, customers, how you take them to the funnel, or you think it has remained the same a little bit? It's just we are more surgical. For example, right, in the audience we sell to, typically marketers, right? The concept of using influencers has become like a big thing, right? Like B2C, even there are more and more folks coming in B2B who are trying to promote their brand, and social is becoming a very important strategy. So we are focusing a lot more on that. Anything that comes to your mind, or like that you think the tactics have changed a little bit? Or
I think I think content strategy has evolved. There are only so many marketing tactics that we can leverage at any one time. I think there are some new ones in the marketplace. This format that we're participating in right now is a tactic that we can use. So it's an interesting one. But I think that more and more it's about content. So you talk about influencers. I think that voice of customer is incredibly important in our marketing strategy in the enterprise. The credibility that comes with using your existing customers as advocates and influencers is critical. So the way we think about leveraging our DevRel or our technical community as a marketing tool, while not crossing the line with them and sort of frankly pissing them off, is an important tactic. I think that has taken shape in our space in particular. I sit in B2B infrastructure, gnarly technical stuff, like the implementers like to hear from implementers, and figuring out how to use that kind of voice of customer as a strategic utility is something that has definitely evolved for us over the course of the last couple of years. I think, I'll be honest that I am cynical about display advertising. I think there are some of the CMOs that I talk to are also similarly cynical about display advertising. It's a utility to get eyeballs, but man, I am less and less confident that it is a useful utility, and I'm more and more confident that we have to be focused on really highly effective SEO. Like, man, we use glossary or definition pages really effectively to draw in organic search traffic, and people are doing what do they say, 80% of the learning around a particular vendor or product happens before anybody speaks to that vendor or product. So that's, man, you better be really good at SEO. You better be really good at organic search, and you better teach people things in really strategic ways in your website and not just market to them. And so there are definitely that, but again, I go back. My team loves to hear me say the word surgical. It's almost a bingo card position now, but that is about being surgical about how you're approaching the market, right? So that's one way I'd sort of answer that question.
Very helpful, Michael. And this is like a selfish question that I'm asking more for my learning. Obviously, a lot of companies, right, are moving from, or as they evolve the company or they grow the company, they move from one category to like other category. And when consolidation is becoming like a huge thing, right? Like they want to change their messaging, positioning in the market, and also bring customers and employees along with it, right? And
Yeah.
I'm sure you have gone through these multiple of these positioning changes, narrative changes, brand launches, etc. Right? Curious, like what? How should companies do this right? Right? Like what are like the three, four things they should just like keep in mind while making a shift from like a point A to point B as the company evolves?
Yeah, that's yeah, everybody's transforming. And in fact, if you're a CMO and you've just taken a new CMO job, 100% certain you're in a transformation role.
Yeah, like
Like
you know,
it's just like that's nobody gets a marketing leadership job because everything's great.
right.
Like that's not how it goes.
100%. And also
Yeah,
like
I
just
think.
point,
Go ahead. Sorry.
on that point, you would have seen Dreamforce, right? The whole company is talking about Agent Force now, and I'm
Yeah,
like what, right? Like what
totally.
a sudden change,
Well,
right?
yeah, I mean, it was Copilot last year. Now
Yeah,
it's Agent Force. Yeah, we like yeah, totally. How many companies are shipping a Copilot now too?
yeah,
Yeah, the yeah, Agent Force is good. I have some friends over there, and the Salesforce marketing leadership team. They're very excited, and it's a hell of a great story, right? I think so. There's a couple of things though, and that's a great example. You can't positioning messaging, right? Not an addition problem, right? It's an advanced math problem. It's
mm,
calculus, right? So if you are distracted by and sort of dazzled by the bright shiny object of the newest product, the newest capability, recent acquisition, and you forget sort of what got you to that point,
mm,
your customers are going to get lost in the story. They're not going to remember where you were. They're going to be confused as to why you're talking about this new thing now and you're talking about old thing yesterday. So like as marketers, sometimes you have to delicately rewrite history
right.
to make those steps make sense to your employees and customers. Marketing is a storytelling job, right? We were born because as yarn spinners. So you don't want to get lost in explaining, but tell a story about the evolution of the positioning. Like if it's product to portfolio, if it's software to SaaS, if it's segment 1 to segment 2, you've got to tell a story that connects what your current move is in the context of your last move. And so if you consistently go back to your origin story as a company, even if it's 10, 20, 30 years as it is for me, and rebuild your narrative against that origin story with this new destination, like rebuild your narrative with that origin story against that new destination, that new product or that new acquisition, then people have short memory. So they're not going to remember the little nuance change in your messaging. Like you're giving them a new reason to believe based on this new reality that your company is based on. And I think that's an important part of the marketing job. And it's not BS, right? It's the evolution of storytelling. Like that's the right way to do it. That's an important part. The Agent Force, Copilot, AI. AI is probably the most. It's probably the best utility for exposing crude and immature marketing. I don't know that we've had a moment like this where people who are not able to evolve messaging and positioning in strategic and effective ways are more exposed. The whole feeling that we couldn't miss the boat, like I think led a lot of people to like jump in the water right in front of the boat. Like it didn't feel strategic. So like if you do this really effectively and you go back, let's think about how we got here, why we're here, what's our origin story? Okay, what are we doing with artificial intelligence? How are we using it in effective ways? Like if you have a technical marketing team, a product marketing or a solutions marketing team, they should be sitting down with the product team and asking these questions, right? They should be saying, I got it, AI, new feature, love it. Okay, let's go back. Here's what we were talking about last year. How did you get here? Like what actually led you? What customer need, pain? What happened to lead you down this path? How are we talking to the customers that had pain number 1 last year about this new AI pain or opportunity this year? If you don't get in and dig in and understand that evolution from a product strategy perspective, then you're not going to be able to tell the story effectively. So it's all part of that go back, remember how we got here, rebuild the narrative based on this new reality.
Makes a lot of sense. But on that point, if you don't think of anything that on it of your mind, it's fine. But any brands you like sort of think that, hey, you know what, they're doing a good job with like how they're positioning themselves, like just like a great brand that you admire from the far off in the B2B world.
A great brand that I admire in the B2B world. Man, that's actually good question. I feel like it would take some time for me to.
Yeah,
I think I want to be thoughtful about it. I stare at I don't think any of us could build a top 10 list without being impressed with what Microsoft has done in the last 8 years. I was at Microsoft for a long time. I left almost a decade ago, and I lived through the transformation that they drove to get us from what was then a server-based enterprise business into the SaaS space and subscription services space. And that was, I think, impressive.
Well said.
And here we are 10 years later, and we've got a company that might be among the top, 3 or 4 most relevant in the AI space. Like, oh my goodness, like how impressive. And in business, I'm not talking like consumer AI, chat GPT, like the business of AI. So I think what they've done is incredibly impressive in the way they've evolved their narrative and the sort of stakes they put in the ground. Obviously, investment strategies, product strategies. I think they have a lot more work to do, but I certainly could not be more impressed with what the last few years.
Such a massive company and because people don't think, you're right, Mike. I think people don't, like, when people think of Microsoft, incumbent, old school, but man, they have led the race in the whole AI.
It's pretty incredible, actually. It's pretty incredible to go through multiple transformations. We talked about transformations earlier, like talk about a company that has transformed itself multiple times to attack new opportunities, and somehow to our messaging and positioning, somehow explain that all in the context where they're coming from. So it just feels like the natural evolution of their business, right? Nobody feels like this is weird. Why are they here? I think maybe if you go back 20, 30 years when they went from being a consumer company to an enterprise company, everybody was like, wait a second, you guys ship Windows. What are you talking about? Servers? But they did that, learned some lessons, and then it was like servers to SaaS. Of course, like SaaS to productivity to, Teams and video conferencing and day-to-day engagement to Copilot and AI and intelligent, incredible evolution.
So well said. Michael, shifting gears on this one thing that we were discussing before this was you have like a very effective video team that leverages a lot of the roadshow content, right? And I think you did 12 roadshows or probably more than
14 last year, yeah.
That's a lot of roadshows. But tell me more about how your team like leverages that roadshow content in an interesting way. I would love to just hear about it, since it's a lot of work to do a roadshow, but there is a lot of work that happens after, which makes that even more amazing. So I just want to hear your thoughts on that, which could be very important for a lot of marketing folks listening to it.
Yeah, I think so. You talk about roadshows. So first party events, right? Our customer events. So we did a flagship customer event, and then we ran a series of global roadshows that were basically the sort of locally relevant translation of that flagship event. And they varied in size from a couple hundred customers to 600 customers, depending on the region. So they can be quite large. Right. So if you are a peer of mine in the industry, you spend a lot of money on events. Like your budget sheet has got a big old chunk of money that goes to sponsored events and first party events, almost certainly in the B2B space, without question, because we're back at the events these days. I think that, we used to teach lessons in marketing where I'd sit with teams where I'd say, okay, so this event's really important, but really we're targeting the people that aren't here, right? You try to teach people that the keynote, I worked on a lot of big stage enterprise keynotes early in my career, and I'd be like, okay, there's 2,000 people in the audience, or sometimes 10,000 people in the audience, but we're targeting the hundreds of thousands that aren't here. So, and you do that really effectively with a press release and a blog and a video, right? And you've got this strategy that is, okay, we've taken the keynote and made it globally relevant. But the thing that we have tapped into, I think, really effectively is that the entire event experience can have that reach if you are really strategic about how you capture the event experience and how you target by segment and persona what you do with what you capture. And so you can't just record video. Like, it's not just walk through the booth space with a camera. It's be very strategic, be planful, build a plan for who you're going to engage with at events by segment, by persona, by role, by partner, by customer. Have an interview strategy, have a content capture strategy, have the on-site people that know how to capture, process that video in real time, have the people in your corporate offices and know how to catch what's going to be processed in real time, and have the machine sort of geared up for each of your events. You can feed a whole year of content with really effective use of a 2 days on-site event. And video is like, so there's a couple of things, like, well, the way I think about it, I think mostly is that it just enables you to say more faster. Like what we're doing right now, like I'm here, I'm waving my hands. If I had a whiteboard behind me and we were writing, like I can convey so much so quickly and in such an engaging fashion versus long form blog post, right? It's just, gosh, I can do so much with video. And of course, I got social media utilities where I can put this kind of content out there in real time. I can get metered out over time. So much context that I can communicate visually, physically. We use Brightboards pretty effectively and do live sort of whiteboarding sessions, but you can screen share and do live coding and deploy software, and you can do an awful lot with the format. So we've built out an evangelism team. We've built out a content strategy that is centered around utilizing our first and third party events as a primary vehicle for generating content that we utilize across the year.
I think that's a great idea and strategy. Obviously, I'm sure you would have to sort of think about how to make budget for it. But the one point that makes a lot of sense is these road shows, even 2-3 of them, to your point, can make up like H1 of your content strategy, right? Because it's just capturing so much video content from partners, customers, employees, and investors, and whoever you want to capture in these events. So,
yeah, I mean, look, we did our customer events called App World. We did our one of our largest road shows was in Mumbai. It was our India road show. We had 600 customers and partners at that event. Pretty good sized road show, right? Pretty good sized event. But that's a big country. Like we can't do that 15 times across every major city in India, but we can certainly reach that country really effectively with a very locally relevant content storytelling effort, right? That's the thing about that capture is now I have an entirely locally relevant content library that is about, and I can market at least for a half, maybe a whole fiscal year, depending on how quickly our portfolio is evolving and the stories we're telling are evolving. And so when we look forward, our fiscal 25 just started. We're on October 1 fiscal, so we just kicked off. We have a flagship event planned and 10 road shows already booked. Like our year of content development is very centered around that customer conference and that experience. And we know exactly how and when we're going to use that, how we're going to leverage social, what we're going to hold back, what we're going to use in big blasts and launch moments. It's just become a quite integral part of the way we go to market.
Love it. I love that idea. I want to steal that from you. But I think we are doing that in some capacity, but the fact that you all at your scale are thinking about that actively and spending time actually on doing this, it's fantastic. Last question, Michael, for you before I let you go. Any guidance for folks who are in the middle management layer in marketing who aspire to become, VP, CMO someday, right? Like, what lessons sort of do you want to share from your just career journey, right? Like in terms of how they can get there eventually.
Yeah, I love that question. One of my favorite things that about leading at this level is people development mentorship. Like it's so rewarding to watch people develop inside of your own organization. Like it's incredible. I think that if I had to give a piece of advice, one, we talked earlier about there's 25 job profiles in my organization of less than 250. So like you're never going to be an expert in it all. It would take you 125 years to have 5 years of experience in each of those things, right? So you're not going to. So the thing that I think is important is the sooner you can identify your path to senior leadership, the better, right? If you're 1 or 2 years into your career, don't worry about it. No big deal. You're good. But if you're 10 years in, you kind of want to know what your path is. And those profiles are pretty familiar and common. They're not hard to identify. There are brand-centric CMOs, there are comm-centric CMOs, there are demand-centric CMOs, product-centric. In big companies, there are field marketing-centric CMOs. So I think identifying the place that you're going to lean in. I'm a product-centric CMO.
Right.
My career started in deep tech. I've been an infrastructure guy a ton of my career. Like if you had to ask me what I lean on in moments of crisis, is my technical understanding of what our products do, why our customers love our products, and how they solve problems with them. Other people come in and say, "Oh, I understand PR and AR engagement. I understand how to navigate the media landscape. I'm really effective." So other people are like, "Marketing analytics, man. I can stare at spreadsheets and tell you things, deep insights."
Right.
And so I think figuring out your path, which thing are you going to lean on? Where's your stake in the ground going to be? And then building the sort of alliances and network around you, inside and outside your company, of the things that you aren't. So that when you start building leadership teams and you get that promotion that says, okay, now, oh, you're a brand-centric guy, now you own growth and demand. I got to go find a demand-centric person to go lead that team. So I think you can be strategic about it, but you should, I think, at some point in that sort of mid-tier of your management, make a call, decide where you want to lean, and start building towards that kind of leadership. It will define where you can go. It will define the types of roles you can pursue at some point, but then eventually you'll get to the point where you've got that CMO role, you can build your expertise and knowledge across all functions, and then you've got legs to go many different places from there.
Right. That's a great point, Michael. Michael, thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it. It was a very enjoyable conversation that was more organic. So thank you for doing this. I really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it as well.